principles issued by the National Academy of Science and Technology Philippines several years ago. And then on the ethics, what are the ethical issues that we are should be concerned when we do research and when we publish. So the NAST guidelines and ethical concerns on plagiarism, ethical and legal issue, authorship for editors, for reviewers. And I'm going to talk also about predatory journals and predatory conferences. So we define ethics very simply as the study of standards of right and wrong, a formal or professional rules of right and wrong, system of conduct or behavior. And that's my source. So you have to cite the source of your information. That's only ethical. In 1995, we issued the guidelines for researchers on ethics and procedures, which was quite detailed. In 2008, NAST issued the ethical principles and guidelines for scientists and researchers. And you can get the full copy on the website. I'd like to discuss just a few, very briefly, these principles of ethics for scientists and researchers. So these ethical principles articulate the general principles of ethical conduct in scientific work and all its aspects. They should guide all scientists in their various roles and functions in the scientific and academic community, in Philippine society, including research, publication, and other forms of public communication, teaching, and mentoring, among others. So number one, all Filipino scientists should recognize, abide by, and intentionally disseminate these basic principles of ethics articulated in these principles. The ethical use of science in Philippine society. So this is all for all of us Filipino scientists. We should consider scientific research as an integral part of a culture of inquiry, and as the source of innovation, and thus defend scientific work against inappropriate criticism. Ensure that scientific knowledge is used in the service of national and human development goals. So we should really strive. Oh, thank you very much. We should strive to make use of scientific research as an integral part of the culture of inquiry. We should cultivate our culture of inquiry, and we should cultivate this really not just among ourselves, but among our younger colleagues, and starting also with the younger ones, the children, no? So hindi yung puro tayo haka-haka, but it's a culture of inquiry that we should develop. That scientists should serve the scientific community and the general public by providing unbiased professional judgments and statements regarding various issues of public interest. But take note, based on careful scientific studies. So when we're asked to give our opinion, our professional judgment regarding some issues, be sure that you're going to base your statements on careful scientific studies. Number 4, intellectual honesty. Always practice intellectual honesty. Acknowledge the scientific contributions of predecessors and colleagues to the research question being studied in all written and oral reports of their research study. Do not plagiarize. The second one, or the first one, of course, practice intellectual honesty. The second one, do you, in your introduction and literature review of your papers, do you include all the authors, or the works of the authors concerned, no? The works that are related to the topic of your paper? Do you not include those who are opposed to you, or your rival, or those who are opposed to you? That is not ethical, no? So you know what? One time I was asked about this, but ma'am, we do not. What if the work of that person is not reliable? So I said, well, okay, so you think it's not reliable, but it's in the published literature, so why don't you also mention and then tell what issues that paper has, if you can do that, no? But we should really take note of that, the second one. Weighing the benefits of science vis-a-vis potential harm. Scientists undertake research in such a way that ensures that society and all its members, the environment, and other basic human and cultural values are not compromised. Okay, so I think we're aware of this, but we should all inculcate this. Later on, I will be mentioning what are the agencies, what are the some of the laws that relate to this. No? Commitment to professional development as scientists, to broaden and deepen their scientific knowledge and strive to improve personal professional competency, open to discussion and factual arguments. So we have to improve ourselves. No? So professional development as scientists. So we cannot just say, okay, I already finished my PhD. I spent 5 years working so hard, and that's it. No. So we have to broaden our knowledge. What's new in our field, and so on and so forth. And we should be open to discussion, and if the person is asking the questions, again, the rival, you know, do we say, I don't agree with you, and you don't discuss anymore? No, so we should be open to discussion and factual arguments. Development of students and other stakeholders committed to mentoring future scientists and to developing the scientific knowledge of their students and other stakeholders and end users of scientific knowledge. So, it is part of our ethical principles and guidelines that we should be mentoring future scientists. It's our duty to mentor our students and our younger colleagues in our laboratory so that they will become better students and become probably our future scientists, develop their scientific knowledge. And it's not only the students, but also the end users of scientific knowledge. So this means that when we write our scientific publications in scientific journals, we should also strive to disseminate the information to the general public, for the better understanding of science, and also that they can appreciate science better in their own language. Advocacy for scientific approaches, defend the freedom of scientific thought, expression, exchanges of opinion and information, refuse to use non-scientific approaches and expression of ideological, religious, and political opinions in their work as scientists. So, if you're going to give your opinion, it should be, you should not be basing it on ideological, religious, and political, no? So you have to separate those from your statements as scientists. So when we teach and guide students in the research, we have to emphasize the scientific procedure and always emphasize that honesty is the best policy. So I will now continue on with more specific ethical concerns in research and publication, the use of human subjects, the use of animals, our indigenous people and or their knowledge, intellectual dishonesty, and the authorship, a favorite topic of all our researchers. So, ethical concerns in research. Whenever you use human subjects, you have to get the appropriate permit, no? So, the different universities already have research ethics board. Like UP Manila, of course, has led that. So the UP Manila Research Ethics Board, there's the website. UPLB has to get that application, no, submitted. Saliva, no, so it's not. What do you call that? Saliva, excreta. This will still need some permission from the Research Ethics Board. So the best way is for you to talk with the members, no, or make the application. Because when you submit your publication, your paper to journals, they will ask you for the permission, no? The permits. Use of animals. So we have the DA, Order Number 40, DA Administrative Order Number 40, Series of 1999, Rules and Regulation on the Conduct of Scientific Procedures Using Animals pursuant to RA 19, number 8485, the Animal Welfare Act of 1998. And then at UPLB, College of Vet Med, we have an institutional committee. So again, the use of animals for research, guinea pigs, rabbits, mice, you have to get permission. Involving indigenous people or their knowledge, there is an EO 247 bioprospecting law. The RA 9147, Wildlife Act RA 8371, the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act of 1997, and under other relevant regulations. So you cannot just go to Mount Makiling and collect species there, collect samples, either flora or fauna or microorganisms. You have to get the permission from the proper agency. And I think they have an office at UPLB, College of Forestry and Natural Resources, or check the DENR, no? So, the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act of 1997, even if it's just a survey, again, you have to get the permission, or go to their office or the website and then the office and check how it will be done. So getting samples, asking permission, they have the process. And okay, so this is just for creating awareness. You have to look into the details on the respective website and then their offices. Intellectual dishonesty, we have always emphasized this. What does it mean? What does it cover? Falsifying data and the like. Subtracting, adding, ignoring, falsifying data. Plagiarism, copying, and supporting, so that's the third one, it's just I added, supporting or patronizing predatory journals. So what is plagiarism? It's both an ethical and legal issue. To plagiarize, to take and use as one's own the thoughts, writings, or inventions of another, especially to take and use a passage, a plot, or the like from another writer. So these are examples of plagiarism, coming from, so the source is the website on plagiarism.org. turning in someone else's work is considered plagiarism. Copying words or ideas from someone else without giving credit, that's plagiarism. Failing to put a quotation in quotation marks, so that's problematic even for journalists who forgot to put the quotation marks in their articles published in newspapers. There have been cases of plagiarism, no? Giving incorrect information about the source of a quotation, changing words but copying the sentence structure of a source without giving credit. Copying so many words or ideas from a source that makes up the majority of your work, whether you give a credit or not. So whenever you read another article and get what do you call that? So you need to cite them, cite the article, parts of the article. You already rephrase when you write it down. Otherwise, the next time you read it, you might think it's own. But of course, you know your style, so you should know that it's not your own words, no? So, but it's very, very difficult. It takes a lot of practice and it takes a lot of editing. And you also know that there are now softwares that can check plagiarism. So probably in your institution, you already have. So at UPLB, they have the big universities, Ateneo, etc. They have this. Avoid plagiarism by citing literature used, all types, including internet materials, paraphrasing cited literature at once, not using full sentences or even phrases from another work. I myself can check, my students, when they submit a report, so this is not your own writing, this is not your own words, you just copied whole long phrases. If using exact word or sentence, already quote and cite the source. But in our field, the natural sciences, we don't do that, in our papers. We don't cite. In social sciences work, they do a lot of quotations. And then if you are quoting more than 50 words, ask permission from copyright owner, So you use more than 50 words, you still put quotation, and then you put the author's name, but you still have to get permission. In class, failing as plagiarism can cause failing the course, and suspension or expulsion. For submitted thesis, withdrawal of degree by the university, and this has happened, at UP, probably in other universities too. For published papers, removal of paper from journal listing, and if brought to court, jail term, or for some cases, like, let me see, what is it? When are you going to go to court? So, for example, I asked NATS to send this PDF to all of you for your information. But then you find it so very interesting and you decide to print it 1,000 copies, remove my name and sell it. You are now infringing on my copyright, So I can sue you. I can bring you to court. I can ask Attorney Medrano to help me with that. Now, of course, many music pieces or musicians have been brought to court because of plagiarism of melodies. So now they have the forensic software for checking whether your song has copied from previously released songs. So they have to do that for songs, for compositions. Okay, so for illustrations, you just better redraw and cite original. Okay, so it is an ethical issue because it's covered by copyright. No? It can be covered by copyright. Concerned with protection and exploitation of the expression of ideas in tangible form, protected by the IP law, protects original works regardless of quality, and only if works are fixed in material and form. When infringing the copyright results, it will result in the economic loss for the owner. Kaya may infringement. So for authors, no? So now we go to authorship. Okay, so this is the concern of all of us. Who can be authors in your publications? So first is that the author should have made substantial intellectual contribution to overall study. Origin and conceptualization, design of studies and experiments, completion, analysis, and interpretation, modeling data, writing up for publication, answering reviewers, revision. So, it can be any or all of this, but not just at the writing, no? So, you cannot invite somebody to write the article for you. Otherwise, I will have many articles that I did not participate in, but I could write them. So, you have to be involved in one or two of these before the writing up. What else? You should agree to be co-author if you are, okay? You should not submit the paper to 2 journals at the same time. You should accept responsibility for paper's content. The input should be beyond general supervision or instruction, must have understanding of methodology and implications of work, must be able to defend work against challenge. So these are the what the authors have to do. So if you do not have this capability or you do not agree, do not be a co-author. Even if it means that you are not going to share, you know, the publication award, no? So, what else? In general, for students' thesis, the first author is the student, except when several students contributed to the paper, when advisor thinks students not deserving, or when it's the professor's culture to be first author in papers. So if you have several students working on the study and you publish the paper, there, for example, all BS students, no one among them can possibly be the first author. So you as the senior or the study leader or the advisor can be the first author because you are the one, first, the conceptualization of the study, then you are the only one who can weave the story out of what the students have gathered, no? The students have obtained, the results. The corresponding author is the project leader or the study leader and is ultimately the responsible for the paper. So even if you are the last in the sequence, it's okay because you are responsible for the author. You want to give credit to the first author, for perhaps your MS student or your junior colleague, but very deserving of being first author, major contributor to the paper. See the guidelines of various universities and professional associations. Contributions of each of the authors should be substantial and should be declared. If you are a member of the thesis advisory panel, this does not equate to be co-author. Co-authorship must be deserved. No? So this is now a problem at the university. The panel members think that they should be co-authors. If you want to be co-author, then you should be involved in the advising, not only at the latter part when you are you have read the thesis and you are just asking the students questions. It should be participation from the start. And no to guest authorship. So what do you mean by no guest authorship? Wala dito. What do you mean by guest authorship? You are the director of the institute, and since you are very well known, your name is put in the authorship. That's one. You are the head of the lab, but you did not contribute, so you should not be co-author. Or what else? There are many instances, no? Even if you are asked to be co-author, please decline to be co-author. Say thank you. You can, if you, for example, you gave some advice, but you really did not contribute substantially. But your advice was utilized, no? So just thank them, and you can say that you can put me in the acknowledgement section. So there are ethical guidelines in various publications. This is American Chemical Society. So whenever you when you submit a paper, you check the guidelines that they have. No, so I'm not going to read this anymore. This is from Harvard. Many institutions, including medical schools and peer-reviewed journals, have established standards for authorship. These standards are similar on basic issues but are changing over time, mainly to take into account the growing proportion of research that is done by teams whose members have specialized roles. So it's very important that the authors specify in their manuscript a description of the contributions of each author. The primary author should prepare a concise written description. And now we always work as a team, no? Before, 1 author, 2 authors. Now, 4 authors, 5 authors, 10 authors. So how do you decide who does the sequencing? No? So you just have to sit down with the co-authors, and of course, even at the very start, you already know, okay, you are the lead, you are in charge of this paper, so you are the study leader for this, I'm the project leader. So you can lead this, so you can be the first author. And then for another study, if you have another study in the project, that can be by another author. No? So you can do this even at the start, not at the end when the paper is already being written, the start of the research. Again, this is APA, so this is Psychology Association. Minor contributions to the research or to the writing for publication are appropriately acknowledged, such as in footnotes or an introductory statement. A student is usually listed as principal author in any multiple authored article that is based primarily on the student's dissertation or thesis. Of the authors. This is a repetitive part of the banana Musa acuminata genome by 454 sequencing in BMB plant biology. You can see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 authors. And here it is specified what they did. It's not just that they all participated. Very specific. EH, Hybroba, isolated genomic sequencing, performed detailed and cytogenetic mapping, etc. No? All authors, and then at the end, all authors read and approve the final manuscript. Baka naman din nyo pa nababasa yung manuscript, nag-sign na kayo. The Philippine Journal of Science has a very nice description of the different duties or responsibilities of the co-authors. Philippine agricultural scientists, we are also working on that one. No? So, be aware of this. Oh, this is one of my art papers in JAFC. Just to give you an example. Here, Bernardo and Garcia considered first authors. They contributed equally to this study. So you're familiar with that. They have a sign here that says that they contribute equally to the study. I am at the end. No? Pero whenever we cite this, it's always going to be Bernardo et al. Right? It's not Bernardo and Garcia et al. So, after this, we said, okay, the next paper, Beth, will be first author. So, she will have to do the continuation of the work and become first author. No, so, when you have a project, you can do that. This one, Ami is first author. The second one, Beth can become first author. I'm always last. I'm like Nora Honor and Nora Honor, di ba? And this is Vermont. This is a master's thesis, and BBG was the advisor. Dr. Mabesa and I were panel members, but we were very, we did a lot of advising. We were not passive advisors. So we deserve to be co-authors. No? So first authorship must be deserved. Assigning undeserved authorship connotes full representation and okay. And that was one problem we had with 1 or 2 papers. So, whatever institution you have, Department of Science and Technology should be there. Now, what if you are a student? No, like some of us were students, and we are not really part of the. We are not exactly collaborators with professors. But can our institution be still reflected in the authorship, no? Authorship affiliation, etc.? Yes, we can. You just have to ask your sensei. Di ba, no? Ask your sensei. Can you please include my institution there? Anyway, I'm on official leave from the university or from the DOST Research Institute. So they will put there. But if you don't ask, they may not think that it is necessary, no? Because that is not the usual way that it's done. Responsibilities of authors, it's original, including write-up. Identified authors contributed significantly to the work. Submitting the work only to one journal or publisher at any one time. Do not submit for publication papers already published, as in proceedings. Of course, editors should also be have also responsibilities, and many of you are now editors. You should treat submitted authors fairly, objectively, courteously, and honestly, consistently. Giving action on the paper in a reasonable time, avoiding bias, conflict of interest, and external pressure. We have to recognize our responsibilities to the authors, recognize the intellectual independence, protect the integrity, provide guides for answering. No? So we don't tell everybody what the paper was about before it's published or how bad it was. So you are also reviewers now, accept only when paper is in your field of expertise. Keep review in confidence, be objective, fair, avoid bias. Do not use materials in reviewed paper until published or with permission from authors is obtained. No, so this has become also a problem when you are tempted to use the materials that you just reviewed. Either it's an article or a research proposal. Complete and submit review to the editor within a reasonable period of time. I'd like to proceed to predatory journals. This is only 8 slides long. What are predatory journals and conferences? They are primarily open access. No? Claims, peer review, fast processing, and really very fast. Within 1 week, you get your OO approval for your paper. And for legitimate journals, you cannot get an approval within probably 2 or 3 months. That's already very fast. Charges publication fee, it can be very high, no? but it also gives, what do you call, discount. So it has a bogus editorial board, meaning that the members may not have been, may not have accepted to be members of the board. Look at the papers. It may have very poor quality papers. Papers could have widely different topics not related to title or main theme of the journal. There is this Bill's list of predatory journals, and Jeffrey Bill is an associate professor of University of Colorado, Denver. So what did he do? So he prepared a list of predatory journals, but he was always saying that you should check yourself. And probably he was threatened, or suits were brought to him, no, or before court. So in, I don't remember now, 2016, his website was withdrawn. No? But still, if you want to look, there is an archive listing here. So you just Google Jeffrey Bill's list. How can you determine if journal is predatory? You can check this. You can check the publisher. Who is the publisher? Where is the office of the publisher? Check the editorial board. Check the quality of papers and issues. And your discipline community should already have a listing of good quality journals. There are new journals, no? So there are so many journals. Why do you need to submit to very new journals that nobody has heard of, with no impact factor? And decide considering all issues. So this one is, I can see it. Life sciences, bioinformatics, etc., etc. Oh, and you can publish the paper in 3 days' time. It's impossible if the journal is legitimate. Okay, so how about predatory conferences? They're primarily run as business. Organizers are not scholarly or professional scientific organizations, usually held in tourist places. No, so you will love to go there because of the place. Even if held at university campuses, you have to check if officially co-sponsored by university organization or just renting out places at the place. For example, it's Harvard. There are so many spaces in Harvard which you can, which companies can rent out. No, predatory conferences also promise fast publication of paper. So it can be buy one, take one. So you attend the conference, and by adding $50 more, you can get to publish in the journal. No? So, or free. So fees can include both registration and publication. No? So for more information, you can check the PowerPoint presentation of Dr. Fidel Menemenso on predatory journals on conferences. So be careful, study all aspects. Funding of attendance in conferences now scrutinize more closely considering the existence of these predatory journals, conferences. You lose money and the scholarly paper when presenting at predatory conferences. So thank you. I hope this is informative to everybody.
Thank you very much, Ma'am May. So at this point, I would like to call our Secretary Fortunado de la Peña for his message.